the director here at the Squamish Chamber of Commerce, and it's June 16th, and we're very excited to welcome you all to this session on building resiliency and strength through our collective COVID stories with Christine McLeod of Everyday Leaders. Before we start, I'd just like to take a moment to recognise that we are on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation, and we're very honoured and grateful to be able to live and work in such an amazing part of the world. We are recording this, so just a few housekeeping rules, because we'll post this up on the website afterwards. While there's loads of you, maybe everyone say hi for the camera. Cool. And so Christine is going to have a presentation for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to go into the discussion. I'm sure you're all Zoom experts by now, so it's good practice just to keep your microphones on mute so that we don't get background noise. And then when we get to the discussion section, obviously you can unmute yourself and speak. It's nice that we have so many cameras on so we can actually see people. I've been seeing more people hiding these days. I think everyone's in their kitchen in their pajamas. And then, yeah, then there'll be a Q&A session. And if you do have any questions throughout the session while Christine's presenting, there is a chat function that's at the very bottom right here, and you can post questions which will pop up on the right-hand side. So I am going to pass the screen over to Christine. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. It is so nice to see so many familiar faces. I don't know about you, but I'm craving giving people hugs, and seeing all of you, I just want to reach through the screen and give you a big hug. So we'll just have to do that virtually. Some of you I know just because I've kind of coached you in the past couple of days. It's your first Zoom session. So first of all, congratulations, you're amazing. And we're all learning all of this new technology. The one thing about Zoom, if you're on an iPad or if you're on a desktop, is if you go, I think on an iPad it's the bottom and the desktop it's on the top, you can actually have two different views. So raise your hand if you're looking on grid view right now. So if you can see everybody's face, just raise your hand. Okay, so those of you who can't, you're probably on speaker view, and what speaker view does is you show the main person talking, and so anybody that is talking goes on the main screen, and everybody else ends up being a little thumbnail at the top or on the side. So I would switch it probably just to speaker view now, because you'll be able to see the presentation a little bit better, and then once we go to discussion, I would put it back to grid view, because it just feels like we're more hanging out in the same room together. So, okay. So I am going to share my screen, and awesome. So if you have any trouble seeing my screen, just pop a little message into Jen or Chelsea, but hopefully you can see a PowerPoint. And I'm just going to talk for probably about 15-20 minutes at the most about this topic. And then really what I would like to do is I'd like to actually ask some questions of some people in the audience that are some business leaders that I've had personal conversations with, and then open it up to questions that you might have as well. So I guess the first place that I would start is this idea of when life gives you lemons. And one of the things that I feel like in our community is we've been handed lots of lemons in the past couple of months. But what I'm inspired by is I'm inspired by how much lemonade we've all made, so to speak, and the incredible stories of resilience that we have in this community. And I just really wanted to share a couple of those. Really across Canada, small businesses, which all the people on the call today are part of our Squamish Small Business, are really have just seen an incredible impact because of COVID in multiple different ways. And so this presentation isn't about going through all of those impacts, but it is really worth noting the amount of business decrease, the amount of efficiency decrease, the challenges that we've all faced is something that all of us in one way, shape, or another have been impacted by. And so what I wanted to do is I really wanted to dive into the community, the business community, and share a couple of sort of Squamish COVID-19 stories, because goodness knows we're not out of the woods yet. And if this happens again, or we go to second wave or whatever, sometimes I find our greatest inspiration comes from just in our own community, because we're such an incredible community of entrepreneurial, positive people that we can sort of start to feel a bit down and in our own little bubbles. But really today is just about sharing some stories that are out there in the community. Definitely all in this together. There's actually on my street on Perth, someone has carved in wood on the front of their house a sign that says "Stronger Together." And I do think that together as a business community, we really are all in this together, because there's a cascading effect of what impacts one definitely impacts all of us as well. So when I think of resilience, that's the word that I think of myself as a mom talking to my girls and being resilient in all of the changes that they're facing in their school life and their home life. And I really look at all of you, and just that's the word I think of. I think of the resilience, the ability to just kind of move through challenge, over, above it, through it, under it, and to end up being successful. And from a business standpoint, for us, that's about minimizing risk. It's about preparing for future scenarios that are happening and protecting our people, our employees, and our assets. So what I did, because that's me, I'm a connector, I went out to my social media hive, and there's various different groups that I'm part of, sort of Women of Squamish and Squamish Moms and the business community. And I just asked, I said, who's doing an amazing job in the community that's been creative, innovative, resilient? Who do you love doing business with? Who have you hung out with for the past couple of months? And literally all of these logos that you see just come from the answers back that I got from the community. And really, I think I could have filled probably 3 slides with this, but these were the names that actually came from people specifically emailing me and messaging me stories, specific things that these businesses had done that just were incredibly impressive. So what I did is I then reached out to all of these businesses and I asked them sort of a number of different questions. I just was curious about, this feeling that we all had at the beginning of being a bit paralyzed and cocooned and fearful, and how did we actually move out of that, or did we? What are some examples of pivoting, which seems to be a bit of a buzzword right now, but in many cases, some of you had to completely change your business models. What could you share as an example? Some of you found opportunities that presented themselves that you would never have really thought of or faced if you hadn't actually pivoted or had to do these challenges. And in some cases, some of you are going to keep doing some of the things that you had to do out of necessity in the past couple of months. I was curious as to what drove you as business leaders. So internally and externally, what were the things that got you out of the bed in the morning? And maybe it was financial or emotional or values-based, but what drove you? And what does resilience mean to you? So that was just my definition of resilience, but I was curious as to what it meant for you. And I guess this question that I'll end for all of us is, what's next? What's next as we are the new normal, and what's next if this kind of gets worse, and just having a conversation around that. So it's been a little bit surreal, and what I find is I have moments when I think back to 8 weeks ago or even 6 weeks ago, and it just feels like a different world. But what I wanted to do is I just wanted to start. I don't know if you've seen this video. I actually had not seen this video until 2 days ago. Tourism Squamish put this out, and I have to tell you, when I watched it, I bawled my eyes out, and I've watched it about 20 times since then, and I've probably been teary each time. But this is really only about 6 or 8 weeks ago. So I just wanted to take 1 minute, because that's how long the video is, and I wanted to play it for you because I just want to honor where we've come from, because it really is a little bit of a surreal experience. So I'm just going to press play, and hopefully you can all hear. Okay, I got through it without crying. Oops, hang on one sec. Just go to the next slide here. So I don't know about you, but I feel like round about the time when everything was empty in the streets and we were all cocooned in our house, for myself as a leader and as a mom and as just someone in the community, I definitely felt a lot of fear. I think it was sort of the beginning of spring break, the second week of spring break. We weren't sure if there was COVID in our community. We weren't sure what we could do or what we couldn't. And it felt very fear-based. And what I have seen in the past couple of months is some of us have sort of stayed quite cocooned, and some of us have kind of moved through that fear. And it doesn't mean it's been easy, but we've sort of been courageous enough to make a decision or multiple decisions. And sometimes it's been decisions for our family, it's been safety decisions, it's been business decisions. But courage sometimes is not the absence of fear. It's just being able to actually, despite your fear, being able to be courageous in making a decision. So I just want to honor that, because I think that all of us have done that in some way, shape, or form. Whoops. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of amazing businesses that we are so lucky to have in our community, and in some way, shape, or form have really, in my mind, shown quite a bit of resilience. And had to make decisions, quite often sort of on the fly. This one is Allison Brome, and I know we have Katie on the call. We all love Allison Brome so much and couldn't wait for it to open. And I think literally it was like days away from opening, and they all of a sudden had to delay their seasonal opening by, 2 months. They maintain lots of, close relationship with their suppliers, because obviously their supply chain was really affected as well. And I don't know if any of you were the recipients of this, but, kind of partway through, they actually adapted to a new business model and they started delivering pints. And Katie will speak a little bit more maybe to that in depth, but, I know that for us, the first week that we went on the website and ordered our Allison Brome pint and then got it delivered on Friday, it was like Christmas morning for us. Our kids were so excited. And it's quite interesting because in this case, that idea of, that new business model of delivering pints is actually something that these guys have decided they might actually keep through the winter months and might be sort of a complementary revenue stream for them, in addition to their storefront in the summer, which they never had time to do. So they're still adapting on the go, but to me, they're a shining example of a COVID business story in Squamish. Sean is on the call, and I know we just want to reach through and give Sean a giant hug and his team, because I just think about the early days. I would walk into Nestor's and see Sean like a deer in the headlights kind of thing, as we were all madly trying to, stock up on our toilet paper and flour and everything else that we got in the store. But I can't even imagine what it was like for Sean and his team, and quite frankly, the team at Save On and Independent, and anybody sort of in town who runs that sort of bigger grocery business where you have to be open 24/7 to sort of accommodate customers, and you have to change things on the fly. And I can't even imagine for Sean and his team the biggest changes just around supply chains. So all of a sudden it's great that, he has toilet paper in the store and it's gone, but, I don't know that the powers that be in the toilet paper factories that make all of the toilet paper anticipated that we would need that much. And so just dealing with customers, fearful customers in the beginning, not sure kind of all of the different things we could and couldn't do, and then quickly pivoting from all of our grocery stores, just the social distancing signage, first hour of the day for seniors, just different things, doing that kind of in the grocery stores, just upping their game on their delivery service, on their online service. Those are all things, I think, of examples that are quite impressive for really a complex business. I know we have Melissa on the call as well, and I don't know if any of you have children or if you personally take lessons at SAM, but imagine hundreds of kids and adults in our community every single week doing individual private lessons and group lessons, so acting lessons and singing lessons and, those things that happen in a group. And all of a sudden, Melissa and her team having to rethink how to actually collaborate with a teacher. So how do you actually collaborate with a piano teacher when you're in a different place and they can't, touch your fingers in your hand and be right next to you? And what does that actually look like? And one of the things, I'll get Melissa to talk a little bit more about that I found quite interesting is because Europe was a few weeks, I guess, ahead of us, is Melissa had the ability to tap into instructors in her community in Europe and other places to find out how they actually did this. And the amazing thing with Melissa and her team is not only did they pivot so quickly to do all of these lessons on Zoom, but they actually found opportunities to create new classes during the day because people weren't in school. They were looking for new things to do. And in some cases, one of her instructors, Jocelyn, who used to teach my daughter, Nicole Fiddle, is in Scotland right now. So she actually was able to join the team again. So SAM is just an amazing example of ways that they figured out, not just individually, but in group, to be able to pivot very quickly because music and these lessons became something that was really important for kids to look forward to. I know we have the crew from Happy Mess as well on the call. And, Dahlia, you and I had this conversation, but I found it, interesting. Sometimes on social media, you can kind of see people go through different things. And at the beginning, I think you guys were really worried about your rent and about income and not being able to get answers. And you had the courage to sort of go create your own answers. You created your own business COVID community to share insight. You were trying to lobby and trying to figure out rent situations, and then just trying to figure out, what do I do? I'm a mom, I have kids at home, I have a business, what am I going to do? And pretty quickly I could see you shift and you kind of went to this art on the go. So I don't know if any of you have had birthday parties in the past couple of months and taken advantage of the coronavirus piñata that they made, but that was a bestseller. So you get to have a piñata dropped off and you can smash the coronavirus piñata for your party, or virtual paint nights and different art kits at home. So again, that was really cool from a new revenue stream. And then trying to figure out how to actually look at your small physical space and allow maybe small pockets of families to sort of have, private pandemic sessions where they felt safe. Ma'am and Sir, two of my favorite people in the community who own Squamish Martial Arts. So 30 years in business, not necessarily a business that's, tech reliant. And then all of a sudden to have to switch to doing Taekwondo and, other martial arts, even like jujitsu. How do you do that on Zoom? How do you figure out that new model? So, talking to Michelle on email is they really wanted to just keep paying their staff. And to do that, they needed a revenue stream. And one of the things, because my daughter does Taekwondo, that I found impressive is they created a new model of membership. So normally I think it's a monthly $130 or $140 to be a member of Squamish Martial Arts. And then the students can do as many sessions as they want a week. Well, they did Zoom sessions, which is hard enough. Michelle can maybe talk to that a little bit. But they did a new model where they charge a certain amount, so $100 a month instead of like $140. And then what Michelle said was, you know what, those people who stick through us with this, because this is going to allow us to pay our rent and pay our staff, we're actually going to honor that lower price of membership as we open up again. So everybody else will pay $130, $140, but you're going to actually keep paying this lower price because thank you for supporting us. And that means a lot. And then we're in this together. So I think that's just a really great example. And funny enough, as much as Ma'am really hated Zoom, it was very tricky. She's actually figured out that they're gonna do a blend of models. So they have people from outside of the community or people who prefer to do Taekwondo on Zoom, or maybe they missed a class, and so then they can do a Zoom class to make it up. So great examples as well of that. Sarah, I know, is on Zoom, and now you're no stranger to Zoom, I know, but I had no idea, but SDC had 456 students. So if you can imagine 456 kids and adults taking dance lessons at a studio, and then all of a sudden just, you know, what do you do? And so again, totally different business model is trying to keep people active and trying to keep community close. And pivoting to Zoom, which is really tricky with all those different dance instructors. But one of the things I'm going to ask Sarah to talk about at the end is one of the things that Sarah does, which she does slumber parties. So she does a slumber party with her competitive dance team and with some others. Well, they actually had a virtual slumber party. So it's not necessarily just about the revenue, but just in terms of building community. I think that was really amazing, and I can't wait to hear about it. And then it also gave Sarah an opportunity to start some new programs. So journaling or intro to choreography or teaching dance. And again, Sarah said she had people that were not from Squamish actually sign up for the Zoom dance courses. So that was an unexpected positive, I guess, that came out of that. Hillary, our amazing head librarian, is on the call as well. And, you know, the library is like our hub in our community. It's like the heartbeat in some ways of our community. And I know many, many people in this community who really relied on the library the past 2 or 3 months, both for virtual program, tech support, or just still continuing with reading clubs. But also with new resources and discovering digital libraries and things that we didn't necessarily do, that we were just craving things to do, like reading. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I would love for Hillary to speak a little bit more to it towards the end, is if you walk into the library, kind of the room on the left and kind of the foyer, Hillary and her team ended up creating kind of morning like warming space. So being able to kind of open that up to the community and people who maybe didn't have a place to go when it was quite cold, and just creating kind of an atmosphere where, again, that community was welcome. Whoops, go back one here. I think we've got Jeff on the call as well, and we've got some interesting things. I think for Jeff is, rather than put some bullet points, I wanted to put these 2 slides that he sent me, which I thought was kind of cool. If you look at the Google search for puppy training and adopt a dog, and look at where that curve goes, and look at the months and the weeks, in some ways that business would be booming. However, Jeff's business requires going into people's homes to do their training. And so pretty quickly, Jeff and his team pivoted to Zoom training, and he can speak a little bit more about kind of the success on that. But I think it's quite interesting here that the opportunity is skyrocketed, but at the same time, the business model as it was definitely couldn't work. And so just trying to figure out new ways to work around that. Whoops. And then Janine on the call, the amazing Janine and her team. So this number kind of blew me away. So other people's business went down. And in the beginning, when we were all hiding in our homes, Janine was trying to keep up basically with over 90 deliveries a day. And they'd laid off their staff so that they could get served. And, you know, how do you keep up with all of that? It's impossible. And so just really thinking about the values kind of what Billy's was about and how they wanted to do business. And they actually briefly closed for a bit and took the opportunity to renovate and work on a bit of a rebrand, which I think is coming, and pivoted back to open as soon as possible. But again, as a business owner, is Janine's demand stayed the same or went higher, but at the same time had way less staff, and physically they all couldn't work together actually building those bouquets. And so that was really challenging as well. Diana's on the call. I don't know if many of you know this, but you know, we all love Sunny Chibas, and it's got a bit of a cult following, I think. But one of the things that I saw on social media pretty soon after we all cocooned was this idea that your team was really feeding the community. And you put out a call to basically say, no questions asked, anybody who self-identifies that they need a warm, healthy meal for themselves and their family, just sign up and we're gonna give out a free meal at 5 o'clock that day. And we had a chat last night on the phone, and in the beginning, I just want everybody to realize is that Diana and her team were feeding about 80 meals in our community every single day. And that was just gratitude, or just want to help you out. And interestingly enough, the community rallied, because when we were all super bored and got nothing to do, people would drive up from the city and just order Sunny Chivas and sit in the parking lot, and they would hear about this program and they would pay extra. They would basically just say, we just want to donate and help you out. We just want to support what you're doing. And so all of a sudden you have your community and your people that are basically helping you help other people. And then, you know, in the beginning as a business owner, you might be like, holy smokes, people are going to just take advantage of this and it's going to go nuts. Well, Diana actually said it naturally ran its course. So as people started to get CERB payments in and a little bit of money through different things, it went from 80 a day to 60 a day to 40 a day to 20, and it just naturally ran its course. So it just goes to show us sometimes that when we do the right thing, it doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to take advantage of us. Trish, we all know Trish. She unfortunately couldn't make it on the call this morning. But again, Trish is one of these super positive, amazing business leaders that panicked like the rest of us in the beginning. She was just about to launch kind of a 3,000 unit online site anyways, but how the heck do you sort of have people shop through all of those units? Because if you've been to Style Zone, it's like one of this and one of this. So she ended up pivoting pretty quickly and doing daily video fashion shows. So I don't know if any of you saw these on social media, but you can go back to Trish's page on Style Zone, and she just put outfits together and just did a little video fashion show to show people different things that were on the site. They did curbside delivery. You could text back and forth. She would send pictures. And what she started doing also was just small group personal shopping experiences. So anybody on the call here, you can grab a couple of friends, and I don't know if you're allowed to grab a glass of wine as well, but you can essentially go and have a personal shopping experience at Style Zone. So from a business standpoint, I just think that's a really cool opportunity that some of us might explore to do things a little bit differently. And Chaos Kids, I know for me as a mom, I really appreciated the work that they did to keep my kids busy and on social media just to do some photos of just different crafts or different things. And again, because we couldn't necessarily go into the store all the time at the same time, is texting photos back and forth, FaceTime calls, curbside pickup, and really just inspiration. So I don't know that I ever want to see a puzzle again at this point, but when I did want to see puzzles and when I was really into them a couple months ago, I definitely used Chaos Kids quite a bit. Healthy Hearts, Healthy Minds. So Vanessa Doak, again, has hundreds of kids every week doing leadership programs and kinder kid programs and all these different things. And so very quickly pivoted to Zoom, and not necessarily from a revenue standpoint, because it was a massive revenue drop for her, but just really to keep that sense of community and a safe place for kids to be able, just for an hour or two, to be able to reconnect with each other. The other thing that I thought was really cool that Vanessa did is she kind of opened up a merch tuck shop, not just with sweatshirts and hoodies and t-shirts, but she actually created, I think there's maybe 10 orienteering courses in our community, from beginner level to intermediate to advanced. And so you could actually go on to the tuck shop and you could buy for $15 an orienteering kit that would come with a compass and everything else. It would get dropped off at your house, and you could take your kids and you could go into Valley Cliff or Garibaldi Estates or Garibaldi Highlands and basically just orienteer for an hour or two. So I'm not sure if you guys did as many walks in the forest as I did for 2 months, but my kids were starting to get bored with just the regular loops, and this was something really neat to do. And I could go on and on. I mean, there's so many other businesses. You know, I know personally as someone in the community, I found great joy in, you know, twice a week, just walking into Tall Tree and getting a loaf of fresh bread. You know, Backcountry pivoting to just more of their cans and their takeout service. Tantalus, or any of the bike shops, just being able to still take your bike out the back and have someone come out and help you with personalized service. Storm rented out some of their equipment at the gym so we could do our workouts at home, and they really were quite creative in terms of what we could do with our passes to put them on hold. And this is what happens when you do this with your community. So Kim was telling me yesterday, in some cases, people who had the means and were still okay financially paid double so that their business could stay open. So instead of paying 1 month, they just paid double, or they paid for someone else. Or even though the gym was closed, they still continued with their payments. And in return, Storm has just added all that time back at the end. So I love this idea of kind of each one help one. And then this one, raise your hand if you've heard of Solidarity Bread. So I had not heard of Solidarity Bread until someone pointed this out to me on social media and Women in Squamish. And this is one of the only businesses I can think of that actually started during COVID. So most of our businesses shut down or slowed down. And this is a new business. And I'm just going to show you this little video, which is quite inspiring to me, the idea. So this is a new business in our community, and I believe that we have them on the call as well.
I'm from Slovakia, where every visitor is welcomed by sourdough bread and a pinch of salt. Gives a big meaning to me, like the bread is symbolism of warmth and maybe also a life. So yeah, I didn't even think twice when we came up with the idea of making bread that is just beautiful and also it's needed.
I sort of lost my income and sort of my main occupation as a cook. At first, it was difficult to just not have anything to do. Like I could be looking for a job, but the opportunities were not really around.
So I was thinking, what can I do? I was basically thinking like how to be helpful at the same time for the community during the crisis. We contacted the food bank and the homeless shelter, and they said that there is a much higher demand for food than there was before the crisis. When we were launching, it doubled, and now I think it's tripled from the pre-crisis time. I was talking to Raul about the idea of having donations with every order, and that's how Solidarity Bread was born.
We bake fresh sourdough bread twice a week, so people can order. And with each of their order, they have to pay for at least one loaf that will be donated to the food bank or to the Squamish Helping Hand Society. That's the symbol, is like breaking bread is sharing it. And in this case, I think what compels me is that the person who pays gets the same product as the person who didn't pay for it. And I think to me, that addresses a big issue in our food systems where it's a two-tier system because some people get the privilege of choosing their food and some people don't. For everyone involved who ends up eating this bread, knowing that someone else is eating the same bread somewhere else is like kind of a cool idea. Because I eat the same bread, and so it sort of makes me feel like if I enjoy the bread, someone else is enjoying it maybe as much as I am.
Solidarity Bread is not only to address food insecurity, but it's also like to switch people's thinking about like how the resources are distributed in our society, and that there are some people who can afford to pay for the extra loaf. There are some people who can't afford to get any. We want to support the solidarity in people and basically give a tool to people to show their solidarity.
So I think we have Michael actually on the call, and I just, on behalf of everyone, Michael, I just think your business is amazing. I think the values of which you built your business is amazing, and I know that you're open and keen to look for anybody in the community, any other business leader that wants to collaborate and just kind of make the idea go further. So if you have any interest at all in this business, I would encourage you to reach out to Michael or to Raul at Solidarity Bread. And at the end of the day, this is kind of what my feeling was when Louise and I and Jen and Chelsea ended up talking about kind of what we could do for this, this Zoom call, is just this idea that we are such a strong community, but we are stronger together. And I think in the beginning of all of this mess that we went through, we all cocooned into our own businesses and we just went to like fight or flight and survival mode. And eventually, as we worked through it, I feel like the true Squamish came out, and you see all these examples of people doing just good things and kind things and helpful things and collaborative things. And that's sort of the message that I just wanted to reach out to you. And I'm so happy that so many of you are on the call, is because whether that's as a business owner or just in community or volunteer work, is that especially if we're in this for the long haul, is I really, really do believe that we're stronger together. I kind of found a whole bunch of funny little memes, but this optimist one is someone that knows that taking a step backward after taking a step forward is not a disaster, it's the cha-cha. And then actually I had, after I sent this on Women of Squamish, I actually had one of the women message me privately, and with this meme on the right. So basically, apparently there isn't actually such a thing as a lemon. It's a cross between like an orange and a citron. So life never gave us lemons. We just made them up all by ourselves. So just 2 thoughts to leave us with before we jump into discussion. Is that looking ahead, there really is some amazing resources that start just here with the chamber. You guys have done an amazing job sort of just keeping us informed as business leaders, keeping us resourced, and that's a place where we can actually all find out together what we can do as a group. So that's all I have for my presentation. So I'm just going to stop screen sharing here and go back to Zoom. And thank you so much. I'm blown away by how many people are here. It's so cool. Okay, so I've got my screen on grid view because it's way more fun to see everybody's faces. So if you are comfortable to put your face on camera and not hide behind the screen, that would be awesome. But there's a few people that I'd like to just ask a couple questions to, and then I guess I'll just open it up to the rest. So if you do have a question after I'm done this little bit of one-on-one, you can either put your question in the chat or you can just raise your hand. So the first person I wanted to chat with was Hillary. And Hillary, I just wanted you to chat a little bit about kind of that entryway in the warming mornings and kind of what just the decision making around that and what you've kind of seen. Just a little bit, take us through that.
Yeah, so we closed to the public on March 16th in sort of that shock feeling like a lot of us can relate to. And then, the library is not just a place for books, it's a living room for the community. And so there were a lot of people we knew that didn't have anywhere else to be. And the weather in March and onwards, even now, isn't that warm. So it was a collaboration with the district and Helping Hands. And as probably many of you know, in the time since now, there's been some temporary housing established along Loggers Lane in the time before the new under one roof development gets finished. So there now has been some more impressive solutions. But basically from end of March till now, until the end of June, each morning the library meeting room from 8 a.m. till noon is a warming center. So people can come in, there's socially distanced chairs and tables, the bathrooms are available, there's Wi-Fi, and there's staff people there. The staff there are actually redeployed district staff. So our library staff were busy doing more library things, but because our building wasn't being used for other things, it just made sense to set it up. And so there was a lot of quick pivoting and learning around how to set that up and the signage and the protocols and what we needed to do. But I'm really happy that it happened, and it's been going 7 days a week, and it'll wrap up by end of June, at which time, hopefully the weather is a little less of an issue. And soon after that, we're hoping to actually set up that room, the meeting room, to provide internet, public computer access, printing, scanning, things like that, because that's another loss or gap in the community right now. And then hopefully not too long after that, opening up our facility to a little bit more of the typical use of the library again, all things going in the right direction, hopefully.
Awesome. And Jeff from Barkbusters, I have a question for you. So, you know, we sort of saw those charts of going, you know, everybody getting puppies and wanting to train their puppies because they're home with them. And then at the same time, I know you work off a franchise model. So as a business owner, did you see your revenues kind of plummet and now they're going up, but in a different model? Or did you not really see an interruption in your revenues? Can you just speak a little bit to sort of what pivoted and kind of where that leads you going ahead?
Yeah, our revenues, they sunk pretty hard when everything happened, mainly because people didn't realize that you could train dogs, or, you know, I think a lot of customers had uncertainty of their own cash flow, so they didn't want to spend any money. So I think everyone was in a holding pattern probably for about 2 weeks. It didn't do anything. But we rapidly shifted to build a curriculum for online training, a whole Zoom session that we got out to all our franchise owners and ourselves. We used it too, which was great. And we were really shocked at how effective it was. And what we learned from it was when we know when we go into someone's home to work with their dogs, the dogs behave a little bit differently. There's a different dynamic. So doing this all by Zoom and having a family just with their dog without us in the room was actually a much more natural way for the dog to behave. And so the results of the training actually got better because there wasn't an outside influence. So it's something that we're taking forward in our routine because it is a really effective way, particularly when you're dealing with, say, a dog that's aggressive to other people. Where you don't want to be in the room because it'll really set that dog off and be a little bit dangerous. So it's a great new thing from dealing with an efficiency standpoint, and also because our guys travel to people's homes, now they can schedule Zoom sessions for tune-ups. You know, when people just need a little bit of help, they can get in, make a call for like 30, 45 minutes instead of scheduling a drive time, schedule a 2-hour appointment, do that. So we can get to see our clients more quickly. They're happier. It's way more efficient for us. It works great. The other benefit that we've seen too is that we used to get a lot of calls from people across Canada, like, you know, Fort McMurray or Timmins or Prince George, where they're just too small. The communities are too small to sustain a franchise, and we couldn't serve them. But now we have, advanced this model where we can serve anyone anywhere in Canada now, and get them really, almost as good a results as being there in person, and sometimes better. So it's opened up a new revenue stream. So we're starting to see the curve of revenue go back up. Part of the uncertainty that we were also dealing with, like in my role, because we're dealing, I've got 22 franchise owners across the country who are also, all like us, going through this uncertainty. So trying to keep them motivated and tuned in, and getting active, like doing things rather than sitting in the cocoon of fear and isolation, was tough. But we just made sure we kept the communication going, made sure we gave them the tools necessary. Most importantly, it's just showing, if we kept acting, if we kept doing things, showing that there was a light in the end of the tunnel, then it could, everyone could follow and have confidence in that. And that really helped our guys go forward.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I'd love to maybe hear from Melissa and Sarah just briefly around, pivoting to Zoom. Are people, do you think that longer term, if this was to happen again, are people willing to pay the same price for a Zoom lesson than in person? And, if it's our new reality, like, maybe Melissa, starting with you, how sustainable is it as a business model? You got to unmute yourself.
Usually I'm the one talking all the time, so I'm not on mute. It was interesting hearing Jeff even talking about the dogs responding differently. Anytime this whole the whole dynamic changes, and there's definitely some people who actually seem to respond a lot better in a Zoom lesson than an in-person lesson. It really depends, I think, a lot on people's personality and obviously how comfortable they are with technology and things like that. I mean, the interesting thing with music lessons is that there are people who make their living only doing online music lessons. So it's definitely something that there is definitely a market for. I think that our client base is people who would mostly prefer to be online, I mean, in person. And we've already given people like the option for next year of being online or in person. And most people are pretty anxious to get back to some in-person teaching. But I think we've all realized that there's definitely a market beyond Squamish as well for online teaching. So we've recognized we can start to tap into that. I was saying we've brought on teachers now that are in different parts of the world. We have a couple teachers who are actually moving away this year, and they're going to be continuing teaching for SAM next year online. So their current students have the option of either continuing with them like permanently online or moving to one of our in-person teachers. And most of the students who have teachers who are available in person will be choosing that option for as much as it's possible. But a lot of the students whose teachers might not be available in person are going to be moving online permanently, which is really interesting just to see people's willingness to do that. Awesome. And there's new availability of like students in different time zones and things like that too, that we can now potentially tap into.
And then just tapping into different times of the day. I mean, talking as well to friends of mine who are counselors, and, I see Kristen's on the call as well. And even just in our own family, kind of just doing counseling sessions via Zoom is, even just the time to drive down, spend an hour, drive home, in some cases, given the option, is some people actually realize that it's easier and they prefer it. And you have different kinds of conversations in your own home than you do in an office. Sarah, what about you? Anything different to add from what Melissa said?
Yeah, first, I just want to know if anybody can see me. It looks like my video might not be. Oh, cool. I'll get that fixed for I teach today. I just want to reflect mostly what Melissa had said. We're definitely going to be gearing towards full-on in-person for September. We're going to be transitioning back into the studio for drop-in lessons, July. So our format for online is we did something quite similar to the Taekwondo program. We completely shut down our regular in-person programming March. Thankfully, we were headed into spring break. So we had that 2-week already scheduled time period to kind of prep and suss things out, settle from the initial shock. And we created subscriptions. So we're calling it the virtual experience subscriptions, which we plan to carry on, not quite in a similar format as we are now, but we will carry on those services in some way or another for September. We're finding with dance, there's a lot of safety precautions that come into place. So that's been our biggest setback, of course, is it limits our service. So our bread and butter of our program is our acro program, which is similar to gymnastics. And we do aerial hoop, which is quite popular for our programs.
You mean you can't do that in your home?
Pardon?
You can't do that in your home?
No, not for safety. So it's been a big setback there. But the great things we've learned, similar to Melissa, is we have students from outside of the community taking classes with us. So we're excited to keep that going in September. And teachers as well. All of our teachers commute from Vancouver. There's only 3 of us who live locally. So it'll be great for September when we jump into private lessons. Sometimes it can be hard to schedule private lessons with our traveling teachers. Now it's going to be easier than ever. Bringing in guest teachers, which is something I've been wanting to do, but it's not always easy to coordinate people from, say, Calgary to come to Squamish, our tiny community, for a short period of time. So I'm looking forward to that, as well as we're going to incorporate at-home training with all of our programs. So for our acro program especially, we always give our kids homework to work on, but they don't always have the tools. So we'll have maybe pre-recorded training layouts for them to follow along. The biggest thing I've learned from going online, I think, is the kids, like, we're working with youth, essentially. Ages 3 to 10 is our biggest age bracket. And then 11 and older is our medium age bracket. They really just want to connect and engage. So we do lots of events with our studio, such as movie nights, our sleepovers, which we have brought online. And once I kind of gauged into the fact that the kids are loving the online classes, but they're missing their friends first and foremost, and they're really missing that social interaction. That's definitely something we'll be planning more of, and we've been really focusing on with our online, is making sure they have that time to socially connect and engage with each other as well, not just the physical aspect of dance.
And I think, you know, even those of you in the community who may not have children as your customers per se, as paying customers, but who are coaches in the community, those of you who know Nicole Rempel, and she's a soccer coach. And so she did things like just put a little manicure kit and dropped it off at people's houses, and they did a Zoom call and they all did a manicure together. And so looking at some of your businesses that work with kids or that have kids as their audience is how do you actually create that kind of neat way to do engagement. I'm curious to hear maybe from Sean and from Katie, just from a food standpoint, from a supplier standpoint, is, you know, what have you learned as far as like just connecting in relationships with your supply chain? And also through this, maybe just starting with you, Katie, just talking about the pints, is have you discovered any new needs that you didn't know were in the community or new revenue streams?
Yeah, I guess speaking to the food component first, when everything kind of started happening in March, after we made the tough decision to postpone our opening, the first thing we did was touch base with all of our suppliers. We don't have a lot because our product is quite simple, but they're all local and we all really thrive to create strong relationships with them. So we reached out to our dairy, we reached out to our fruit supplier and our cone supplier, and just we really wanted to make sure, see how they were doing and seeing how we could work together to kind of get through the unknown, especially specifically with our fruit provider in Abbotsford and getting foreign workers up from Mexico and how that was all working. We really just wanted to make sure we were being as supportive as possible and still purchasing fruit, but also still just understanding the struggles that everyone was going through. So for us, that was a really big learning point for us, just to continue to have those conversations with suppliers because they're kind of the bread and butter of our business. And I guess in terms of the pint productions, it was so cool to kind of really shift our model from a customer who would come to our shop and purchase a product to be able to purchase a product online and then have us make and deliver it. And it was so cool to see how people reacted to that product. So people were purchasing ice cream for themselves, but also for their neighbors or for their friend for a birthday. And we also were able to reach a market outside of Squamish where people who had family or friends in Squamish were purchasing ice cream for them as a gift or as a surprise. And those I think were really cool moments for us to bring ice cream to everyone, but also people who weren't expecting it and they could connect with someone outside of their community just through ice cream.
And what about you, Sean? Anything that you can add just from just what you're thinking of as a business leader and maybe any new revenue streams or just down, revenue up, anything you want to share?
Well, our revenue was up substantially to start with, of course, because all the restaurants closed and everybody was stocking their pantry for what seemed like months and months. I think the biggest pivot probably for us was just looking to vendors that we knew, but looking to products that we didn't carry before. So reaching out to restaurant suppliers and getting toilet paper from them and getting products that we could sell from them that replace products we couldn't get from normal grocery suppliers. Probably the biggest new revenue stream is shop and deliver orders. We were probably doing 4 to 5 a week, and we're probably at the peak, we're doing 300 a week. So that would probably be the biggest revenue stream. For other changes, we were really able to hire a lot of people that were let go from other companies. So that worked out really well for us. And a lot of those people are gone back to work and they're looking at staying on our payroll just in case there's a second wave and they lose their job again. So, but for the grocery world, everything changed. It was chaos before most of you guys even had anything change, because we started probably 2 weeks before any of this stuff even came to light, with people purchasing that had heard this was going to happen. So it was big changes, really stressful time, but it worked out really well.
Awesome. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours, but we only have a couple of minutes left, and there's so many businesses I want to hear. Someone just dropped into chat just a note just saying there's so many interesting businesses here that even just as a consumer or someone in the community, like I have a dog that needs training and my daughter would like to take dance classes and I didn't know about all this, and that's part of what we wanted to do. So I'll just invite anybody, if it's easy to do now, if you just want to put your website or your Instagram or social media in chat for everyone, but also afterwards, Jen and Chelsea can maybe just send out an email, because I don't know if everybody registered for the call. So those of you who registered we can just put a list together of all of those businesses. I just thought a good place to finish would be maybe Michael and Diana is, the one piece that I think about of both of your businesses with the, giving food away to people in need, and just that was the right thing to do. And Michael, your business and how it started is, that connection between maybe you don't make money on it or as much money, but that wanting to do good and wanting to help. And sometimes when there's some bad stuff going on in the world, you don't know how to help, you don't know what you can do. Is what have you found in terms of personal stories that people have shared with you of the importance of connecting to that part of us, of doing good and taking care of each other? So maybe Michael, start with you, just a couple words on your amazing business.
Hi, all, I'm McLeod from Solidarity Bread, and yeah, we looked at the crisis through a slightly different narrative. We wanted to see it as an opportunity to do good, and we wanted to provide people the platform where they can actually do good as well. So that's basically what we do, that we offer our customers to donate bread, and yeah, that's basically our main mission. And right now we're trying to transform the idea. So it's so even in a post-COVID world, we could use the model of allowing people to keep doing good in other different ways. So that's a challenge that we are in front of right now. And the feedback has been great. Yeah, people really appreciate, even if during the crisis, being able to give the support to the community, and we felt a lot of support too.
It's an interesting model, because those of us who know Tom's, for example, of like buy a pair of shoes and then Tom's will donate a pair. This model is different. I just bought my first loaf of Solidarity bread, and there's a piece of me that's like, holy smokes, $16-17 for a loaf of bread, like that's expensive, and I may not be able to do it every week or even every month, but just buying that one loaf of bread on your website yesterday, like, it makes me wonder who's going to get that loaf of bread. And so there is a connection sort of in our heart. I think that is a really interesting thing to tap into, especially when bad stuff's going on in the world. And Diana, what about you? When we spoke last night, you were talking about Vancouver clients that would just drive up because they had nothing to do, and they would sit in your parking lot and order food, and they would give you money extra or pay double for their meal so that you could feed other people. So maybe just talk a little bit about that sense of community.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just people from Vancouver. It was locals from Squamish. Like, actually, a lot of people who had never tried Sunny Chibas before basically stopped by. It was almost kind of bad at the beginning, because we got kind of over bombarded when we were trying to keep the numbers down and trying to like organize everything. But it was really the community everybody just coming in and ordering food and adding extra to their bill. Some people was $5, some people was $20. We were getting e-transfers on a daily, just people wanting to help and to make sure that we could keep the program going. Because as much as, we liked supplying food and giving, there's only so much we could do, especially with the loss of revenues. But between our suppliers, the community, and us, and then my amazing staff coming up with great meal ideas that were delicious and still cost effective, it made them happy to be able to do that, because giving it to the people who came each day just made my staff feel better about continuing to work and pushing through all of that. So, yeah.
Awesome. It's super inspiring. It's really inspiring. So Louise, I think that we have to stop at 11. I feel like we could go for hours, but I think that we have to stop. Is there anything that you want to sort of finish off or encourage people to do?
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing session. Thank you to you, first of all, for organising it, but also to all the businesses. It's been really inspiring to work with you all through this, and I know we're not quite through it yet, but I'm confident that together we are stronger, and Squamish really is such a fantastic community. We will share out all the details of information. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat box there as well. Clearly, I can't do two things at once. So we will make sure that we share out people's details of the businesses. And I feel like there's something here. I feel like this shouldn't just end today. So maybe Christine, you and I can have a chat and think about what's the next step from this. Because this has been really inspiring hearing everyone's stories. So thank you very much for joining. We are at 11:02, and I'm always very cautious of people's time. So again, thank you, Christine. Thank you to all the businesses, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we shall speak again soon.
And I will just say, I've got another 15-20 minutes, so if anybody has to leave, that's great. And if you do want to stick around or have any questions or anything that you wanted to share, then I'm happy, Louise, if you're okay with that we officially stop recording. But I'm happy to stay on for another 15 minutes if people want to share or have questions or stories.
Excellent, that works for me.
Awesome.
Okay,
so we're officially stopping to record, so we'll say bye, and I can stick around. Make sure you check the chat before you leave and take some screenshots of people's phone numbers or emails or Instagram, and just share that love, sort of just like people's photos and comments, and just kind of keep that love going on Instagram.
bye.